Okay, I think we're good to go
Yeah,
on time. So first of all, welcome everyone to the first inaugural series of our Brand Lounge webinar. This will be the first of many to come, so please stay tuned. But also bear with us. This it's the first one. Please do go easy on us. And today's discussion, as you're aware, is focused around the fact of strategies for market leaders. Doesn't have to just be for market leaders. Of course, can be that as challengers, early adopters, whatever that may be within the marketplace. And really, we're looking around from our experience and, of course, yours, how we're looking at maximizing brand value in evolving markets. So we're seeing a lot of change happening, particularly in the region at a very fast pace. Not only how do we keep it pace with that, but how do we learn to evolve in terms of from brand strategy and direction into the experiences to maximize value. So first of all, just to outline the team and who's with us. So first of all, I'm Zach McKinven. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Brand Lounge. To the right of me, I have...
I'm Rahim Lahoud. I'm the Head of Strategy and Insights. Hello, everyone.
And hi, I'm Mossad. I'm the Head of Design and Creative Impact.
So just a very quick fly-through of what we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes. Quick introduction, which we've done. I know we, in essence, all know what a brand is, but an outline of what actually makes a brand and makes a brand successful. Point of view, really, on what we're seeing across the marketplace, right? And what's changing and continually evolving in a dynamic and fast-moving way. How we're managing to navigate those market shifts and best propel our way of thinking and our approach to brand differentiation to meet with some of those challenges and maximize opportunity. All the way through of how our approach from bringing strategy into action. And then we'll wrap up with a Q&A session at the end. Please, this is very much an interactive session as well. So even any questions as we move through, please do comment in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. But we'll have a focused session at the end to help with that as well. So first of all, you've met us. Let's meet you. If you can, within the chat, please share your name and where you're joining from. And we have a question for you. If you can also, within the chat, outline what is your favorite brand or one of your favorite brands, and why is it your favorite brand?
What's yours, Zach?
Very good question. This is something that
I didn't prepare this.
No, I know. It's caught me on the hook on the first one. Thank you very much.
We didn't do it.
Thank you very much, Mo. Actually, I've always been a fan of Virgin. It's a challenger mindset. High five. Richard Branson has been an idol in always looking at ways that not only from a monolithic perspective of driving value in one entity, but how you differentiate the brand and customer experience to challenge the market and status quo. What about you, Ibrahim?
Let me guess.
See, I knew it. I knew it.
Starts with an A, ends with an E.
Yeah, you want to go, but well, yeah, my favorite brand is Apple. Everybody knows that. Everybody in Dubai actually knows that. I love Apple for many reasons, but let's remove the personal thing on the side. I think when they started, Apple started with the power to be your best, and I think shifting from the famous big large computers when Steve Jobs told them this is the computer for the rest of us. I think this was the start of a new era where brands learned how to connect with consumers, and they kept on going. They moved to choice to be your best. And today, Apple keeps telling you, think different. And I think this is amazing, helping people push their boundaries to think outside the box, outside the screen.
Well, I'm going to agree with both of you as well, because definitely those two brands sit in my top 5. But I think today I actually love the brand Uniqlo. Mm-hmm. Not something that is available worldwide too much, but I think I love the simplicity of the brand. I actually love the fact that you get consistency. So when you're purchasing products or when you go anywhere around the world, you know exactly what you can go and find at that specific store. So I think that's basically what does it for me, and it just feels more like a staple. It doesn't feel like something that I can live without, to be fair.
Yeah, I love it. Actually, it should be. It's not in Dubai, actually.
No, and I don't want it here.
Oh, you don't?
Yes. Okay. I'm enjoying my travel.
We'll have a webinar on that subject. Maybe our second webinar, then more that we can cover that in more details. But
so let's see.
So as we know, I think as part of that really, I'm sure none of you answered the question in saying it's a logo as to why that's your favorite brand. And, as we know, a logo represents a very, very small part of a brand. It's across the experience, customer integration, and, the strategic vision of how there's that consistency and differentiation in the marketplace, which is critical. And in order to do that, strategy is at the core. One of you mentioned Lego, which I think is a really interesting one, a brand I've actually worked from. And it was really, truly playful in everything that we did. And how they make that vision of playfulness in everything they do, really helps amplify what they're all about in a certain way.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think we've got Emirates, and I think that's. I mean, I'm a sucker for when it comes to airlines. I love airlines, but I think again, Emirates has created a 5-star luxury experience. Again, it's not about their logo, it's not about their visual identity, and this is coming from the head of creative here. I'm literally attesting to the fact that it's not about that. It's about a full-on experience from A to Z. Yeah. When you think Dubai, top of mind, Emirates comes to mind as the top brand that really brings the country as well to the forefront.
Yeah, we have somebody who wrote Hollywood. I love that actually.
Hollywood.
Yeah. I mean that
it is a brand on its own.
It is.
It's a destination brand. At the end of the day.
Yeah, actually, it's a nice mixture of both. It is a destination, but by itself, it represents an entire industry today.
True.
Which is amazing. That's why everybody keeps the word. And you have Hollywood, you have Bollywood, and anything else.
Although I think to emphasize upon that, cautious of time as well, that as we all know, brand is not a logo.
Absolutely.
It's everything from every touch point, every interaction and perception in terms of how you own that. And really, from what we've discussed, is not even so much on the visual side, is how strategy and long-term strategy has helped supported their growth. Think different with Apple has stood the test of time, right? Even through bumpy roads, to really appeal to that challenger mindset and that of doing things differently.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We understand that, and strategically we need to look at how this evolves, and it's within our core in everything we do, and we will discuss how we take that approach moving forward. And positioning being a vital part of where you stand, how are we differentiating within positioning gap? Where can we own and really differentiate ourselves? And as part of Trout and Partners, from back in the day, the godfather of positioning, in the 60s and 70s, really is still true to this day in how you do differentiate and you add value. So really, it's all about owning that little piece of real estate in someone's mind for what you stand for. And that's a very valuable piece of real estate.
Absolutely.
So
as we said, a brand is a perception. I mentioned Virgin, maybe influenced a little bit from the slides or not.
I mean, I did put airlines in.
Your love of airlines, of course. But for me, I mean, being British, this is a great example really of from the stalwart of what is almost a national brand, how airlines grew from national brands into new challengers coming in to disrupt the status quo and the way they operate. And for me, there are other examples, but Virgin is a great example for this.
I can remember clearly on the Virgin tail, they always had "No Way BA." It was in your face at Heathrow. That's right next to a BA airline. It was
waving the two fingers up in press campaigns and everything. Exactly. That was a true challenger mindset.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
To that of not just companies, a brand can be everything from a service to a product, a city, or even an element of a city, such as Hollywood,
or a person.
Or a person. Exactly. I mean, Elon Musk is absolutely face and voice, which can be a little bit detrimental at times in terms of his open viewpoints. But from that of Richard Branson, as we've discussed, Steve Jobs and Apple, they've really helped propel the brands to where they are today. And so a brand comes from many facets. And for organizations, everything you do, right?
Yep.
And it's got to be a brand that stands for something. So a brand with a greater purpose beyond that of just profit, certainly these days, and how we appeal certainly to younger audience as well. They see through the washing. So really you have to have purpose and really
Yeah.
stand for something.
Definitely about the story today. I mean, the younger generation connects with the stories rather than the brands. And that's why we're seeing these movements like we were talking about Dove and other, and this is creating a very strong connection. So we always talk about the power of a narrative that really drives the entire brand moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, again, the strength of a good strategic idea and how that translates into real beauty, right? I think is again served the test of time for them across everything they do, and relating to the fakeness that's already in the market to then us really representing the real women of today and supporting them in what they do. Also, visual image. So whilst we talk about ownership and direction, positioning, differentiation, visually, this is one of the ways to do this, right? Absolutely. If you look at how you have a strong, ownable brand and invest in those assets that should then stand the test of time to become iconic. I mean, you look at Coca-Cola, such a great example. You look at the iconic bottle design. You can put it out there. Everyone knows what it is. The owning of color. I mean, again, the red is so apparent. You wouldn't have to have, dare I say, the logo there to know who the brand is and who you're communicating to.
Yeah, this is most famous stress test, which actually always works very well, and we always go on it and try to stress test brands by removing the entire logo, the entire identity, and keeping few design elements to see how much it's recognizable. And that's a major key to success, actually.
And what's unique to you. Absolutely. Exactly. And again, the perception that portrays from all of that. And of course, a brand that speaks to the world, right, needs to communicate to our audience through a unique and ownable voice. And Nike is an example of that. And really, from their origins, more or less, of how they've, again, tried to celebrate not only champions and winners, but the winning mindset and us all as people. No matter how small or how early the beginnings, with Find Your Greatness, really just help amplify that in something, again, that's lasted them through to the point of where they are from a brand value today is humongous.
Yeah, I think if you ask anyone around the world, if you say Nike, they know it's just do it. And I don't think there's any question. I think,
and vice versa.
And vice versa. You say just do it, and people say Nike. And I think that's the power of communication and building a tone of voice and having something that resonates with your audiences in the most authentic way as well.
And I think that authenticity comes through. It actually opens up new opportunities of how you evolve, right? Never forget the Tiger Woods, the famous chip into the hole and it just stopping on the Nike logo, just do it as it drops in. Just great opportunities to amplify that. Exactly. So what we're seeing around us as we move into that from, what is a brand and many facets to a brand is the challenges we face as brands moving forward. And not only in the region, globally, we're seeing a continually evolving landscape and many factors that are affecting the way that we look at market share, we compete, we stand out, we get noticed. And there's 6 key elements that we're seeing at the moment. And please, any others that you see or you feel, please mention in the chat as well. It's something we can discuss as part of the Q&A. Starting with the post-COVID world, right? So the world was shocked when COVID hit. Everyone was affected. It was like going into isolation for years and years, and how we adapted. Also, you look at many brands that embraced that, right?
Yeah.
The Netflix era, we saw very much like the Zwifts of the world who were embracing at home viewership, sports and endurance, whatever that may be. So rise in their own value, right? Yeah. And then as we came through that, the ultimate behavioral shift and human shift to
absolutely.
Wow, it was like a new world for us.
Yeah, felt like a restart.
It was a restart. Actually, from on this point, from a business perspective, I remember during the COVID era, we did a survey and we spoke to tons of CEOs, and we tried to really probe what's going to change moving forward. How do you see your business in a post-COVID world? We actually published a white paper on this that everybody can check out on our website and download. And we found out that the 2 most important issues that CEOs wanted to address moving forward are purpose and culture. And that was amazing because nobody mentioned business or per se, or operations, or sales, or money. Everybody said that was an awakening for us. Now we really need to look at our purpose, why we exist, and we really need to look at our culture. And that was an amazing insight for us, a very big eye opener.
Yeah. Population growth is something we're experiencing at a very fast rate, particularly across the region. We're seeing very young average age compared to the rest of the world, right? Which brings us challenges as a brand, very unloyal brand audience. Within that, many different cultures and nationalities that are growing within the region. How do we engage and communicate and drive affinity through them? That represents a challenge for us all.
Definitely a big challenge. We'll talk about infrastructure and everything, but absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to say that when I was in Dubai back in the days, the entire UAE was 3 million people in the UAE. Today, you have close to 4 million only in Dubai. And really, it entails a lot of things, a lot of moving cogs that come into play to really make things move forward. Absolutely.
I think with that population growth is also the upper tier, let's call it, of ultra high net worth individuals. Luxury, I almost hate that term, luxury. I mean, there's attainable luxury and unattainable luxury and 1,000 layers in between, right? It's okay, where do we sit as a brand? But very demanding audience to certainly the brand experience, right? Used to unique products, unique ways of communication. How we adapt to that is extremely important, and how we engage with a very wealthy, important audience.
Just looking at the branded real estate here, branded residences and hospitality, you have all the Armanis, the Cavallis, everybody's here, and
Versace's,
and it's really working amazingly well with the high net worth.
Speaking of that, I just want to address one of the members on the chat mentioned also wellness as a very big growing trend in the region as well. And I think when it comes to real estate, we're also realizing that a lot of these actual real estate companies are actually building wellness into the experience as well.
Correct.
There's the introduction of the Syra Hotel here in Dubai recently, which is purely just about a wellness and fitness experience while you're staying in your hotel room. And I think that's something that is heavily growing, and it's catering to a very niche and very specific market. Totally. But again, that could be something that got influenced post the COVID world as well, became something that we really needed to look into.
Yeah, we
weren't really paying attention to our health and wellness all that much.
Absolutely. I mean, we hear all the Amars, all the Aldar, all the Aradas, they are all engaging now into launching purely wellness-focused brand now.
Exactly.
And that's definitely a very big telltale sign, absolutely.
I think also just on rapid infrastructure development, to your point of, the association with luxury and globally recognized brands, no longer do you just initially see the investment in building a hotel. This mixed-use environment, branded residencies. There was studies conducted of an average 25 to 30% increase in value and sales value by associating yourself and affiliating with an international brand that's servicing those apartments.
And I think infrastructure is playing an amazing role. Sometimes not so amazing. I mean, if you look at how rents are going up and down, and the way, I mean, we live in a part of the world where we're blessed with fast-moving, fast-responding governments. If we look at the infrastructure in terms of urban infrastructure, this is amazing. I mean, metros, trains coming up, highways coming up overnight, and this is really working organically in shifting the entire landscape in terms of real estate and development. And this is where we can see the play on rents and property prices going up and down. Absolutely.
And the demands of consumers in terms of what they're aspiring to as a growing population, the wealth is also coming in. It's you have those demands on your doorstep, so you have to at least answer to those in terms of experience to maximize value. That for sure.
Definitely, that leads us to the 1, 2, 3, 4 changing business landscapes. So this is where we really see shifts in industries. Real estate, hospitality are the two big words today all over the GCC. So we have much more investment being pumped into real estate and hospitality. We have huge chains coming from abroad. We even have locally branded organizations, brands coming up here. We're looking at sustainability, reshaping the market. Definitely moving on to the last one, technology and AI. Today, we look at how government are acting as magnets to all the big players around technology and AI, offering them a perfect safe haven here to establish, even offering amazing incentives. I remember Expo, when it shifted to Expo City, Dubai was offering all the tech startups a 2 years free lease to just come and set up as Expo City, turning it into that big technology AI hub. So, this synergy between what the governments are offering and how big industries are looking at the area being reshaped. I think this is a beautiful symbiosis happening.
Definitely that evolution of CBDs as well, right?
Yeah,
Central business districts, offering specialities in industry sector, and now certainly across the region, how flying the country flag to attract businesses from around the world, which is a difficult ask at times.
Perception. Here you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the critical role of brand strategy in navigating market shift. I had to read that. So basically, when we really look, and we always tell our clients, which might sound strange a little bit, that brand strategy first, business strategy second. Now, it could be debatable, but trust me, that's how it works, because we strongly believe that a brand strategy will inform the business and on how it needs to be built, how it needs to be engineered. And that's really very important for us to move on. So if we look at one of the biggest market shifts happening today, definitely real estate is on the top of the list. Just in the GCC itself, it's estimated to reach around 4.6 trillion by this year alone. And out of those, 3.15 trillion are only on residential. So really, if we look at the dominance of residential today, that's a major telltale sign of the influx that's happening in the GCC. And, the growth rate is 1.93 going up to 2029. So that's a major shift. This is one of the biggest market shifts today that are reshaping the entire landscape. We did some scouring. We really wanted to see what's happening in 2025. What are the biggest insights that will be shaping the market landscape moving forward? Definitely AI had to be on top of the list. It definitely is the biggest disruptor, but the human contact will never die. And that was a constant throughout all the research we've done, that the human contact will remain intact. Humans will be driving that major disruption. And again, it's that synergy between both that will actually reshape the entire market.
Just one thing, not to interrupt you, but not to undersell the strategy services. Just released a white paper on the real estate industry and key findings that we would like to share, certainly with our viewers. This is sneaky peek.
Absolutely.
And there's some interesting stuff in there that we can talk about all day. But sorry about that.
That's why we love you. Actually, yes, at the end of the presentation, I think we have a QR code that you can scan and download our latest white paper on real estate, just for you guys, before anybody else. This is the big sale. Moving on, we're talking about brand loyalty. I mean, we keep hearing brand loyalty coming up all the time. Brand loyalty is definitely here to stay, but the mechanics are changing a little bit. And definitely this is due to the shift in our market audience. So now we're shifting to talk about brand love. Generating brand loyalty can only happen through how we connect our audience, or how we make our newer audience fall in love with this brand. That sounds easy, but it actually is not. So that transcends the brand, the products, the services, each and every journey and experience we inject in this brand to create that seamless end journey that will generate brand love. Personalization. I mean, we hear this term a lot today. We hear about hyper personalization. And when we add hyper, we know that we're breaching privacy more than ever. So how do we reconcile? We need to personalize. This is how the world is functioning today. Mostly this is where brands are tapping into to improve actually on the brand and the products and the services. but it definitely collides with privacy. So I don't know. I think that's a very tricky topic. I don't think we have the right answer for it, but it's really great food for thought. Okay, how do you personalize without infringing too much on privacy? Sustainability. I mean, we've been hearing sustainability for God knows how long, you know. Uh, Everybody was using it as a gimmick. You know, we heard sustainability in values, we hear sustainability in purposes, in brand strategies, in positioning. Everybody tells us we're sustainable. Well, guess what? It's not a gimmick anymore. Today, this is serious business. So you're either into sustainability or you're almost out of business. So sustainability is not anymore a gimmick. We really need to invest ourselves as a brand at the core to really address the sustainability issue, because guess what? That's what our audience wants. And what our audience wants ends up making what our brand is. So we really need to be careful about how we address this. Moving forward, 3 more. Remote work is here to stay. Now, I know a lot of people wouldn't like to hear this, mostly C-suites, but guess what? It's a fact. Remote work is here to stay. So how do we really shift our way of work, our way of thinking? How do we shift the way we coordinate with our clients across the world, with our employees and staff who are sitting all over the world? I mean, Zoom and everything really created an amazing way. I mean, the way Zoom came up after COVID, we all used to Skype. So
I think it's also seeing the evolution of what we call the digital world, right? So the on-screen and the physical,
yeah,
and that is literally
that
a combination of the two. I'm not sure Jeff Bezos would agree with you, but on that front, we'll move forward.
We love Jeff.
I'll tell you, from a remote work aspect, I think the biggest advantage to companies like us is that it actually helps us diversify our talent pool as well. And I think this is what we've been seeing, especially in the creative industry. We're seeing this ability now to tap into other markets where you wouldn't have necessarily been able to find talent before. So this is where I feel remote work has also helped us as businesses. And I hope if anyone shares the same or feels the same, we'd love to hear that in the chat.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure most of you who are looking for talents, who are conducting interviews, I'm sure most of you have heard the first question candidates are asking you: how do you deal with remote work? Moving on. Experience economy. Now, I think that's one of the biggest, most pertinent eye-opener moving forward. We are transcending products today. We are transcending the way we used to, let's call it, communicate or roll out our brands. Today, it's about experience. People are buying stories, and now people are buying experiences. So think about that beautiful mixture of both, having a very powerful story and translating it into a perfectly aligned experience. So brand to story to experience, and just think about how wild things can get. Experience is what customers are after today.
I think alignment is the key word you use there.
Absolutely.
Because you can make a promise and build a story, but if it is in reality, all the hard work's diminished in a second.
Totally. Absolutely. And the digital first business model. So this is the norm moving forward. We've heard about AI, we talked about technology, we talked about remote work, we're talking about all the assets that are pushing organizations today to become a digital first thinking in a way. So we're talking to corporates, we're talking to holdings. It's not anymore about SMEs, and that's very important to think about it. You need to move to become a digital first business model today. So just quickly, there's a poll coming up. Just tell us if those insights do resonate with you. How much do they resonate with you? Do you think that these are really shaping the market moving forward? Yes or no?
I see a remote work resonates with Hassan Fadlallah. He's been asking about it. I think you're from Brand Lounge.
to be discussed. Certainly as well in the chat, any other areas you see this key, point of view on what's affecting business, the reality, on the grounds of this changing environment for consideration. So what's keeping you up at night sometimes? So
absolutely. So what's our secret sauce? At Brand Lounge, we've been in business for over 18 years. We're so proud about it. we have an amazing proof of concept. We're a homegrown consultancy. We're not part of any network. And this is really a big pride for us, a big pride factor. And we have managed through the years to really perfect the way we help brands differentiate. So our philosophy works on 4 pillars. We call them our dimensions of differentiation: purpose, innovation, culture, and image. So purpose basically asks the biggest question of all: why do you exist? It sounds easy, but when you start scratching your head, you'll find out that it's not. Because today, most of what you exist to do is being done by most of your competitors. So why do you really exist? And this is what pushes us to start thinking about how to position our brand. And that's why we call it the soul differentiator. Our second dimension is innovation. And no, it's not technology, just from the get-go. So whenever we talk about innovation, we talk about your incremental benefits. We ask you, what do you do better than your competition? We ask you about your business model. How do you engineer a product portfolio, a brand architecture, your entire organization to really fulfill the purpose that you just stated? And at the end, we ask the big question: how do you disrupt your market today? How do you become the Airbnb and the Uber of your industry? Our third dimension is culture. This is the core of your business. Culture is internal. It's about how your people behave internally, how they adhere to what you stand for, how they adhere to the values of the organization. But mind you, everything we do on the inside will always bleed to the outside. So
I see a few people loving that. It's it truly is the glue.
It definitely is the glue that holds a brand, but also it's also the glue that makes you connect with the outside world also. So it really sits on both. Last but not least, Mo.
Thank you, Brahim. I'm glad you remembered me. Okay. The fun one. So, of course, we talked about building perception, and this is how we do it. We do it through the surface differentiator. So everything that you've done so far with your brand, from, you're building your brand strategy and defining your purpose and innovating and building a culture, has to come out to the surface and be manifested. So we call this a brand image, but don't mistake image for visual. Image is essentially everything from your visual identity to your verbal identity to the way you create that bigger perception that you want the outside world to see you through. All right. So that basically serves as a segue to talk about how we take that strategy that we've built and put it into action. So essentially, the way we work through building a brand today is very one-dimensional. I think for most people who've worked through the process of building a brand identity, for the most part, what we do is essentially create a brand identity or brand design. That's, yes, make the logo bigger. That's what we hear all the time. But essentially, today, what we know as brand design really involves logo design, involves putting together a color palette and typography. It's essentially creating these brand assets, which we spoke about very early on, about the need to have a distinctive visual image, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's where we've always gone, and that's where brands need to go today still to be able to create that brand perception. But it's not enough, because when we think about, again, the trends that we were seeing and how everything is shifting to an experience economy, and when we think about how AI is entering into the mix, and how when we think about how, when we look at Gen Zs and how they don't necessarily follow brand loyalty, but rather they want brand love, we ask ourselves, how do we create brand love? Yeah. And the only way to do this is to really extend beyond brand design and essentially go to brand experience. And this is where brands can play today and really have the opportunity to win. So building brand experiences and getting people to be able to essentially touch and feel and smell and hear a brand is way more valuable than just seeing a logo being placed on pieces of communication. And I think this is what really drives the market today. And this is what we're seeing essentially in our region as well. And we'd love to see what you guys think as well about brand experience and how you define it. Of course, we've done a lot of this, and we've been pushing a lot, how we build brand experiences, from, brand innovation to photography to video shoots to product innovation. Essentially, a brand doesn't necessarily need to live on a paper. It essentially needs to, live out its life in so many different
You
dimensions
don't see
and
paper
layers.
anymore.
Well, I think in the way we think, I think in the way we think, you know what I mean. But anyway, the concept of every touch point of the brand, right, which opens up our mind and thinking of how you truly live and breathe that, and as part of the DNA, that's extremely important in what we do.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
about a guideline
brands,
manual.
brands are not static by definition. I mean, every brand moves, every retail moves, every product and service moves. So that's why we're transcending to build that real experience that shows you really the real life of how a brand lives instead of being slapped on a billboard on Sheikh Zayed Road, which is not bad, but
So that takes us to the end of our first part of the of the session. Enough with us talking, but we'd love to hear a little bit more of from you guys and maybe start through a Q&A. We have a couple of questions. I'll read the first addressed to you, Mr. Ibrahim. You mentioned that brand strategy comes first. Would it be better if brand strategy and business strategy work together as one team to shape the brand's future?
excellent question. Excellent question. Yes, actually, and we have the perfect example for this. Actually, we are currently working with a huge holding, hospitality holding in Saudi Arabia, and that's exactly what we're doing. So the business strategists actually were interviewed at the first phase where we did the discovery report. So we did stakeholders interviews with them. They were present at the workshops that we conduct because everything we do is co-creation based. So the business strategists were there fully involved with us. They understood the entire gist of building the brand strategy. Then once they had everything, they said, okay, give us a couple of weeks. Now let's get our act together and engineer our business strategy based on that. Now, it's very important to understand business strategy tackles so many pillars. We're talking operations, we're talking financial, we're talking entire portfolio, business portfolio, what to keep, what to get rid of, where does this sit? And that's a very tedious part of the business. So to answer your question, yes, we actually work on that, but sequentially, the brand strategy is defined first, the purpose is defined, and then the business strategy takes over. I hope that answered your question.
I think as well, it's not a baton passing exercise, one to the other. Yeah. You know, that you have to work together in tandem, and it continually evolves as well. Once defining purpose, but actually how from a business strategy evolution to a brand strategy evolution, and then what that actually means in terms of reality, right?
Exactly. All right. Thank you, Mahid. That was a question from Mahid. We have another question from Arwa. I don't know if you guys want to answer this, either one of you, but how do companies define and measure brand love, especially in this region? That's an interesting one because we're looking into data and analytics a lot when it comes to brand, and it's tricky.
I'll start, and probably you can follow from experience as well, Ibrahim. It's a very tricky one, and at times difficult for consultancies to quantify, but there's various ways. I mean, we talk about maximizing value, certainly within market research, whether independent or paid for as part of global research as well. You can identify brand value, and so any shifts that you will see, perhaps when you've gone through a refresh of brand strategy. Certainly, there's a long-term nature as to how it's not an immediate effect overnight, right? But certainly within year 1, year 2, you should be able to see the effect that's making and beyond. Exactly. And then there's everything underpins all of that from conducting your own research. From that, in terms of customer touch points and engagement, right, of your brand's communications, engagement experience, your social contact, for example, it's not just about followers, right? It's about engagement and how that relates. I think the days of even siloed communication channels are changing, where it's a knock-on effect of, again, the phygital, but from social to website registrations. How is that driving the funnel of CRM from awareness through to sale? So there's many metrics that we can use that justify success.
I think, from a technology point of view, this is the best times to measure brand love. We have all the tools on the tech side, on the technical side. We have all the best tools that can help us to measure it. I think the question is how do you measure it? What are the, let me say, asking the right questions to really measure it, probing the right emotions, which can start from how people simply perceive the brand, not necessarily buy into it, to how they experience the brand, to how they experience the products and services. So technically, it is research. That's the short answer. But it's how you conduct this research, at what time you do it, what are the specific touch points that you tap into to conduct it. Asking the right question, and that's something we actually always say at brand launch: ask the right question. Okay. And you'll always get the right answer. So it's not really rocket science. It's really about how you engineer the way you tap into your audience to get the right answers.
Thanks. One final question.
Yeah, this one's for me. So Danielle, thank you. Danielle's asking, do you believe brands have moved on from having fixed identities? And how can brands and brand builders become more agile at creating fluid identities without having to constantly revamp? This is a brilliant question. And I think, have we moved on? The answer is no, we haven't moved on. But should we be moving on? The answer is yes, we probably should be moving on. I think one of the things we talk about a lot here internally with our creative team is that, you know, we started thinking, as we saw earlier, we started thinking digital first and motion first. So, you know, today we're all trained by trade to basically think about designing an identity, logo first, and how does it work in static? But that's not the case anymore. Actually, we're trying to retrain ourselves and our behavior to really think about how we don't start with the logo, but rather we start with a visual language. And then how do we work ourselves backward from motion to create something that is somehow going to become static at some point. So we are moving on, I'll tell you that much, but as the entire industry moving on, they should be. And I think we're seeing a lot of that globally as well. I think that the days of how we typically build a brand identity in this kind of linear fashion, with start with a logo and define a color palette and build a
business card.
Exactly. It's no longer the case. Yeah. It's a really great question. And I think, you know, you also brought up the topic of longevity and whether brands should be really thinking about that so that they can extend their shelf life. And I completely agree with you. And I think we've discussed this many times ourselves as well. We look at future-proofing a brand's positioning as much as we look at future-proofing the brand's identity for at least 5 to 10 years in the future. You can't change the purpose of why you exist every time you change a CEO or every time you hire a new C-suite, right? I mean, it's just a brand is a brand, and it needs to live long, right? Revamping visual identities, I wouldn't frame it as you're changing things around, but rather you are refreshing. And that's the term that we use constantly. We've done this with many clients at Brand Lounge as well, where we've basically re-examined an identity that we've created and put out into the market. We would re-examine it a year or two down the line, and then look at how we can actually bring more life into it. We don't change things around. Look, at the end of the day, we're human beings, and everybody gets bored, and everyone feels like, you know, they need to see something fresh and new, right? And again, that brought life into flexible design systems early on as well. It's not, you can't just have one grid template or one design of what a print ad should look like and call it a day and put it in a guideline and that's it. Today, visual languages are moving and dynamic. And again, we always say a brand guideline is a guideline, not a Bible or a holy book, for a reason, because it guides a designer and it guides a marketeer, right? It's supposed to give you direction. That's all it is.
And it's not change for change's sake. At the day, we're thinking screen first environment as well, where, to your point, the evolution, continually think about, okay, a foundation of even a brand identity and visual system, but how it can evolve and move with time. It's vital. Yeah,
I think a lot of people worry on this one because of consistency. And we always tell people there is a big difference between being consistent and being boring. So consistency can be extremely dynamic. And again, I'm old enough to talk about MTV when they came out, and they had that logo container. It was an M, and inside it, everything kept changing. Today, Google. So dynamic brands actually create consistency through dynamism. You're used to the Google logo changing every time, and that's part of being recognizable, actually.
And in fact, if we want to use the terminology we constantly use or consistently use, it's actually what we call brand synergy.
Yes.
So it's having a visual language that actually synergizes all elements together. Consistency is not really a word that we worry about too much anymore, because you can argue, as Brahim's saying, that we don't really care about consistency anymore, but we care about synergy. And I think that's
Absolutely.
that's where we land there.
One last
question.
We're squeezing one in. Go for it.
All right.
delivering experience.
All right. From Feroz, is delivering experience a challenge given the digital first world here? I think if you're talking about delivering brand experiences in a digital space, I think I'm understanding that correctly.
I think actually the opposite.
It's not that challenging.
No.
It's not that challenging. I think with all the tools that we have at our disposal today, and I think with all the capabilities that we have, building a brand experience, whether online or offline, is becoming a very it's a norm at this stage. And I think more and more companies and agencies and talents are actually tapping into it. So we don't really have much of a challenge finding the right partners to work with to create brand experiences. And I think the more important part is that customers actually want to engage in experiences. So I think the bigger fear is not the ability to develop it, but rather to get the people to it. And I think getting people to it is not that far-fetched anymore, if that makes sense.
I think we welcome it more than anything, because ultimately it allows us to express more and what's the potential and how we can grow a brand. So very much welcome.
The digital world is again a tool. So it's really, the experience can live anywhere. We don't see the digital world as a challenge. Actually, we see it as a perfect companion, because you can do so much today online that you only dreamed of years ago. And we have the convergence today. So one of the examples, I don't know what, 6th Street, you know, the shop that actually
first digital store in
the UAE. The first digital store in the UAE. We just go inside the store. There's no one to talk to. There's a tablet. You sit on a couch, you browse, you order, and somebody will bring your order from the warehouse and give it to you in the store. So convergence is a very important keyword today. How do we bring the real world into the digital, and how we bring the digital into the real world? And no, I'm not talking about the metaverse here. It's much bigger.
Oh, look at Amazon when they launched their bookstore, right?
Yeah.
They went the other way around. The digital to the physical.
Absolutely.
Sure. Very interesting.
All right.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed our first session as much as we have. Anyway, it's been very much interesting debate, conversation, covering some key aspects.
Indeed.
And there is a QR code on the screen. We'll leave up for a second that we mentioned about the white paper that's come out through the strategy team and experts here at the Brand Lounge. Please do download. It's a sneaky peek for now, but we will be launching, I believe, next week out to market as well, and be available to download from our website.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you,
everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate you and your questions. And
see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Looking forward to many more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Adwa. Thank you, Feroz. Thank you, Maher.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.